I have games that you don't have. That's what Vanessa Collins said, raising her wine glass in a room full of our so-called childhood friends, laughing like it wasn't a dig straight at me. My husband, Ethan Carter, didn't even blink. And when I stood up and pulled her hair back from his shoulder like I was untangling trash from my marriage, everyone gasped like I was the one being dramatic. She covered her mouth belatedly and crooned, "Claire, I didn't mean to ruin your relationship with Ethan. I wouldn't have said anything if it wasn't 2 years after you got married." The whole room froze. Ethan yanked back her shoulder strap with a snap and hissed, "Don't talk nonsense in front of my wife." Vanessa just laughed it off, rubbing her shoulder and calling him a pervert in a mock-scolding tone. "Your wife is right here, and you're still messing with me?" The room erupted in laughter. Like I didn't exist. Like I hadn't just had red flags whipped in my face. Maybe she was drunk, they would later say. Maybe she had alcohol poisoning. But you know what? I smiled. And then I calmly poured the wine from my glass over her head. She shrieked, scrambled to push me, her silk top soaked deep red. Ethan stood up immediately, furious. "Claire, are you insane?" he shouted. I let go of the glass, letting it shatter at my feet, and raised one finger, making sure everyone was watching. "I'm just playing a game," I said sweetly. "Isn't that what we do here?" The room went pin-drop silent. Ethan quickly stripped off his jacket to shield Vanessa's chest. His face was pale, humiliated, angry. Her eyes turned red like she was the one being victimized. "Even if I said something wrong, you didn't have to react like that," she sniffled. "We were just playing games." She said it again as if splashing red wine on someone wasn't a response to being publicly humiliated. Ethan's jaw clenched. "This isn't a game," he muttered, not even looking at me anymore. "We were young and reckless once, sure, but this isn't that." He tried to laugh it off and said, "Vanessa likes to joke around. Don't take it seriously." I grabbed my bag from the coat rack and said clearly, "I'm going home now. You can come with me or stay with her." And yes, I knew it was harsh. I didn't give Ethan a shred of face in front of all of them. Vanessa pouted and handed him back his crumpled coat, urging, "Just go back with her. Be considerate. You stay here and the next one to suffer might be me." I smiled as her words echoed through the room. Anyone who touches someone else's husband deserves to suffer. No one laughed this time. On the way out, Ethan followed me to the car, his temper simmering beneath his silence. "Claire," he finally snapped, "since marrying you, I've had no woman around me except my mother. Vanessa and I grew up together. She was just excited I came back from abroad. That's it. I even brought you along. What more do you want from me?" I didn't answer. The designated driver arrived in his compact car. As we waited, Ethan mumbled excuses between slurred breaths. His drunk voice still carried the arrogance of someone who didn't think he'd done anything wrong. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of spatulas clanging. He was in the kitchen, apron on, smiling. "Wifey, wake up," he called. "Your favorite side dish is ready." He always had this thing: drink a little, get drunk fast, but sober up even faster. I guess that's why last night he begged me to forgive him, acting like a soggy golden retriever. "Wife," he had said with that puppy dog look, "come with me. What if I get drunk and someone kidnaps me?" He tried to spin everything like it was innocent, just old friends having fun. But when I walked into that dinner party, Vanessa, whom I had never seen before, looked at me and cooed, "So this is your wife. She's so pretty. Way better taste than when you were younger." Her very first sentence was a jab, aimed straight at my gut, wrapped in fake sugar. After breakfast, I ignored Ethan's apologies. "I'm sorry, Claire," he pleaded. "I drank too much last night. I did something stupid. You can punish me however you want." So he remembered. That was all I needed to know. He tried to appease me with lettuce, bitter melon, eggs stuffed just right. "Punish me after breakfast," he joked. That's when his phone rang. A guy's name flashed across the screen. Ethan hesitated. "Do I need to leave the room?" I asked, watching his face. He smiled and picked up. The voice on the other end shouted, "Ethan, you awake? You better come to the pool today. Linny said if you show, she's wearing a 3-piece bikini. There was laughter in the background. Vanessa's voice rang out clearly. Is Ethan coming or not? We agreed no one brings their wife today. Ethan looked panic-stricken. I reached over and answered for him. Oh, Ethan's awake, I said into the phone. So happy he can't talk. There was silence. The guy on the other end stammered, sister-in-law. We were just joking. Don't take it seriously. Ethan ended the call abruptly and turned to me. I swear I'm not going. For 3 days straight, he clung to me like Velcro, video called every hour, acted like a devoted golden retriever. But on the 4th day, I had a major client meeting at the Maplewood Lodge Resort, the city's most elite project site. I was reviewing contracts when his call popped up again. I declined it. If he was truly trustworthy, he wouldn't need to prove it every hour. That afternoon, I heard laughter from the other side of the wooden fence near the pool. I walked over to the lounge area and saw a bikini-clad Vanessa blindfolded, groping through a game of dare until her hands landed right around Ethan's neck. Ethan, she said coyly, they're so immature. What should we do with them? I opened the fence gate. Hair removal cost me 20 grand, I said loudly. Should I invoice you? The pool went silent. Vanessa dropped her arms from Ethan like she'd been caught shoplifting. Claire, she stammered. Didn't we agree no wives today? Ethan dashed through the pool, dripping and frantic. Claire, it's not what it looks like. I raised my brow. Vanessa, I'm the only woman within 30 feet of you. What are you covering? She tried to argue, painting herself as the victim again. Claire stalks him. She tied his belt once. Then someone covered her mouth, probably to keep her from digging further. I sat down on the edge of the couch, looked Ethan straight in the eyes, and said clearly, let's get a divorce. He flinched like I had slapped him. Claire, what are you saying? You heard me. Divorce. I'm giving you to the person you clearly want more. He grabbed my hands like he could beg this into oblivion. Don't say that. I can explain. Explain what? I said coldly. You were playing games, remember? That's what this all-ice-own giant game to you. Ethan panicked, trying to argue that nothing had happened, that there were too many people around, that even if he wanted to do something inappropriate, it'd be impossible. Claire, you believe me, right? I didn't answer. The ticking clock on the wall filled the silence. I pried his fingers off mine. Sure, I said. I believe you. And after that, I'll believe you the next time you put a green flag on my head. His face twisted in shame and shock. A knock came at the door. Vanessa walked in casually, towel in her hair, as if nothing had happened. Hot pot tonight, she chirped. Claire's here anyway, might as well join us. Ethan doesn't like cilantro, right? Claire, do you have any food restrictions? Yeah, I replied with a smile. I can't stand green tea spirits. She opened her mouth, but her friends dragged her out before she could throw another tantrum. Ethan followed me out into the hallway. Claire, don't leave. We'll talk at home. My phone rang. It was Mia, my assistant. I held it up. Sorry, Ethan. I'm not here to fight over pool games. I'm here for business. I left him standing there in his wet shorts, surrounded by steam and cheap perfume, while I walked off to sign a multi-million-dollar deal. The hospitality at Maplewood Lodge was impeccable, I'll give them that. Bonfires, string lights, grilled grass-fed lamb flown in from Colorado, even fireworks over the lake that smelled like expensive romance. Too bad the only fire I felt was the one burning in my chest. I sat across from our British partner, clinking glasses over finalized terms, while my assistant Mia hurried to get the revised contract printed. It was the calmest I'd been in days. And then, like a roach that survives a nuclear blast, Vanessa Collins appeared again. She wasn't in a bikini this time. She'd swapped it for a Girlfriend of the Year act, standing a few feet away with her phone pointed right at me. Ethan, she chirped sweetly into her camera, look what I found. Your wife's having dinner with another man. Don't be jealous. You have to be open-minded. Her phone zoomed into my face without a hint of shame. I didn't flinch. Instead, I looked right into her lens and smiled. Sometimes people don't use their brains. Their families can't help them, I said in English, turning to our British partner. I hope you understand. This happens in every country, right? He waved it off politely. Vanessa, of course, took offense. Who are you calling brainless? Just because I don't speak fluent English doesn't mean I can't understand sarcasm. Not far away, Ethan came rushing over, breathless and confused. Vanessa's demeanor flipped in a heartbeat. She pouted, "Ethan, finally. If you didn't come, I don't know what your wife would have done to me." She tossed him a wide-eyed, helpless look like she was the one being bullied. "You know," she added in a baby voice, "if I hadn't come back to the States, you'd still be trapped with her. She's been seeing other men, so why can't you just relax and hang out with us?" Ethan's face darkened. "This is your definition of a business trip?" I stared at him flatly. "Yes." He gritted his teeth. "You still mind that I brought people with me, but here you are, with a single guy, acting like it's nothing?" I nodded. "Correct. Is there a problem?" He stepped forward and grabbed my wrist just as Mia returned with the contract. "Ms. Bennett," she said awkwardly, her eyes darting between us. "The documents are ready for signature." She hesitated. "Mr. Carter, you're here too." She handed me the folder. "Please review and confirm. It's based on the final terms you and the client discussed." Everyone nearby had gone silent. I smiled at the partner, switching back to English. "I'm sorry for the drama. I hope you're still willing to sign." He glanced at Vanessa, then at Ethan, and said in fluent Mandarin, "In our country, women like her are considered social liabilities." He turned back to me and extended his hand. "Ms. Bennett, I respect integrity. Your company has proven its strength. I look forward to working together." We shook hands. Ethan followed me all the way to the villa. I didn't plan on talking to him that night, but he wouldn't give up. "You were alone with that guy, Claire." "What was I supposed to think?" he whined, voice thick with jealousy and misplaced righteousness. "Vanessa's the one who started this, not me. She's always been impulsive. You know that." I said nothing. He grew more desperate. "Say something. I know you're mad, but at least give me a chance to fix this. Tell me what to do." I grabbed my hairbrush and slammed it onto the table. The sound echoed like a slap. Ethan froze. "Just get out," I said. "I want to shower and rest in peace." He looked toward the bathroom like he understood what I was about to do, then scrambled to fill the tub, throwing in every scented bubble bath tablet he could find. "Let me help," he offered, like bubbles could erase betrayal. I rubbed my temples. "Stop with the meaningless gestures." He reached for me again. "Claire, please. How can I make you calm down?" I took a step back before he could touch me. The sheer discomfort crawling under my skin every time he got near made me want to scream. I snapped, "Stay away from me." That stunned him. But I had more. I needed to say it out loud. "You disgust me." His expression cracked. For a few seconds, he looked like a lost boy. Then he paced, fists clenched, and finally kicked the trash bin across the room. "So this is about Vanessa," he shouted. "She grew up with me. Claire, why don't you understand? I didn't touch anyone. You were there, saw it. There were so many people around. Even if I wanted to, what could I do?" I gave him a blank look. From the bathroom, the foamy water sounded like it was mocking us. "It was just a game," he tried again. I scoffed. "Since it was a game, there's no problem, right? Vanessa can keep pulling your hair, groping you blindfolded. Let her play to win." He stiffened. "Do you have to be so harsh? I can be harsher." I grabbed my phone. "It's Saturday tomorrow. Not sure if the county clerk's office is open. But I'll call on Monday and start the process." I didn't even need him for the logistics. All property was pre-marriage or gifted by our parents. Our assets were notarized. No messy entanglements. Ethan's voice dropped low. "What are you saying?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "I said I want a divorce. You've got 2 days to pack your things and leave." He leapt from the sofa like I'd physically slapped him. "Don't do this, Claire." "Fine, I shouldn't have gone to that party without telling you. But you brought a man to the villa. I'm trying here. I'm apologizing because you're my wife, not because I'm guilty." I walked away. He slammed the door behind him, leaving me in silence. On Saturday, it started. One by one, Ethan's friends began flooding my social feed with a 9-grid collage of him and Vanessa. First photo, her feeding him wine, smiling like she'd won. Second, her licking a pink ice cream cone, then holding it out for him to bite. Third, fireworks in the background as she walked beside him like a lover. Their captions were even more disgusting. Time and distance can't erase brotherhood. Cheers. Mia hovered nearby, holding a folder and staring at the photos. Claire, are you okay? I shut the screen off and straightened my back. I have more important things to worry about than being sad. I asked her to book 2 tickets. You're coming on this business trip with me. The fact that none of his friends deleted those photos says enough. He won't collect his things and them to his parents in New Jersey. On Monday morning, I sat in the county clerk's office for 30 minutes before calling Ethan. He sounded drunk again. Claire, are you serious? In the background, I heard Vanessa giggling. Ethan, you're awake? Come back to bed. Everyone's waiting. I didn't flinch. Since you're awake, bring your ID and meet me at the county clerk's office. Be quick. Silence. You're really there? He asked, the panic finally setting in. Claire, don't be dramatic. Lenny talks without thinking. You knew that from day one. And what she said happened before we were married. Are you really going to throw everything away over a stupid game? I looked at the clock. You have until 10 a.m. If you're not here by then, I'll proceed with legal action. Mia leaned in and whispered, it's 9:40. Should we leave? I nodded. Send the call recording to the lawyer and get us out of here. As the car pulled away, my phone lit up with missed calls. Most were from Ethan's mother. And when she finally got through, she snapped, where did you go? Why didn't you open the door? Ethan said you deleted his fingerprint from the lock. His clothes arrived here. Did you seriously send them? What are you trying to prove? I stared out at the rain falling over New York skyline. Mia used her tote bag to shield me from the drizzle. I thought everyone already knew how dirty his behavior was, I said coldly. Why are you all so shocked now? I hung up. And, just to be sure, I blocked Ethan's number and refocused on my trip. That night at the hotel, I scrolled through my messages. Aside from the barrage from Ethan's parents, one unread message from a new contact caught my eye. Vanessa. I opened it. Claire, Ethan went back to make peace with you. It's been 2 years since I accidentally pulled his hair. I don't even remember what I saw. He just doesn't know how to talk, so I explained things to you for him. Why aren't you replying? Are you mad at me? Sister-in-law, don't be petty. Her post on social media was visible for 3 days only. This is why I don't hang with girls. So much drama. Why do people act like queens when they're just side pieces? That low-level provocation still got under my skin. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it all to the Carter family group chat. Within minutes, the group went completely silent. No one dared reply. But I knew they were sharing it behind the scenes like wildfire. That day, the videos climbed to the top of social platforms. And Ethan Carter finally realized just how viral his dirty little secrets had become. By the 3rd day of silence, Ethan finally realized he couldn't call me directly anymore, so he resorted to using every mutual friend, business contact, and even ex-coworkers just to reach me. He knew I'd blocked his number, so he started calling from burner phones and shared lines, desperately trying to break through. And eventually, one of them worked. He got through. His voice, for once, wasn't angry or frantic, it was hesitant, like he was finally starting to understand he'd lost control. Claire, where are you? Can we talk? Are you unhappy with something in the agreement? I was reviewing contracts at the time, adjusting the clauses for an international partnership, but I kept the call on speaker. I didn't even interrupt my assistant Mia, who was flipping through the folders beside me. No, I said casually, turning a page. The agreement's clear. I think we're good. On the line, Ethan exhaled hard. I explained everything to my parents, he said, his voice laced with guilt masquerading as sincerity. I get it now. I see how all this must have looked to you. Lenny and I can admit, it's complicated. But I swear to you, we never crossed the line. Claire, I'm serious. You can yell at me, hit me if you need to. Just don't leave. I've never wanted to divorce you. I looked up, glanced at the London skyline outside the window, and gave him nothing. Silence. Claire, he repeated, as if saying my name would undo everything. You can hit me, you can scold me, whatever it takes. But please, let me fix this. I turned another page in the contract and murmured, sorry, what were you saying? Were you asking to renegotiate the 70-30 split in the asset division? That shut him up. I could practically hear him blinking in confusion. Why are you being so heartless all of a sudden? He muttered. I told you already, Linny and I are just friends. What she said at that party doesn't count. It was years ago, before we were even married. And even if you saw something, it's just a few clips and screenshots. That doesn't mean anything. That's when I decided he really didn't get it. Ethan, I said, pausing just enough to make the moment heavy, you let her humiliate me in front of everyone. You let her turn my marriage into a joke. You didn't protect me. You didn't even pretend to try. So yes, I'm heartless now. The line went quiet, and I hung up. Too many women spend their lives trying to be tolerant, forgiving, patient, only to realize that tolerance buys you nothing but more disrespect. Turning around, drawing a line, declaring war, that's the only language some people understand. And I was fluent. The day I landed back in the States, the whispers had already turned into full-blown media storms. Everyone in our circle had heard about the divorce, the scandal, the screenshots, the wine-pouring scene. But that didn't stop one of our clever project partners from showing up at the airport with two overly enthusiastic male assistants to pick me up. One grabbed my suitcase, the other opened an umbrella. Mia trailed behind awkwardly like a lost duckling. When we stepped out of arrivals, guess who was waiting like a cliché bad ex in a drama? Ethan Carter, looking like he hadn't slept in days, sunglasses on, a fresh haircut, standing beside his car like he was about to beg for his life. As soon as he spotted me, he strode over, peeled me away from the assistants, and hissed, "What the hell is this? Are you seriously flirting with other men in public now?" I yanked my wrist out of his grip. And what if I am? We're not divorced yet, but apparently that didn't stop you from licking ice cream with your so-called sister. He flinched. Everyone around us stiffened. I'm here to take you home, he said, eyes darting toward the assistants. Linny left. She flew back overseas. It's done. I told her we're over. Claire, can't you just let this go? I tilted my head. Let it go. After everything. This time, he pleaded, please calm down. I've already apologized. I've said everything you wanted to hear. I even made my parents talk to you. Why are you still being this way? I could tell he still didn't believe I'd go through with the divorce. His ego couldn't comprehend it. I smiled faintly. I'm not here on business this time. I'm here to finalize the divorce. His face cracked. For a second, he looked around like he thought he could still fix it with a public scene. Claire, he begged, lowering his voice. I've already swallowed my pride. What else do you want from me? The truth, I said. The real truth. Not whatever you keep rehearsing. You know nothing ever happened with Linny, he barked, suddenly defensive again. We've always been like siblings. I stopped walking and turned slowly to face him. Then tell me something, Ethan. Would you let your brother grope you blindfolded in a pool? Would you let him feed you ice cream and kiss your cheek while drunk? His jaw clenched. That's different. Exactly, I said. You're not lying to me anymore. You're lying to yourself. He grabbed my wrist again, more desperate than ever. You know I've never looked at anyone else, I cut him off. That's why you chose Vanessa. Not because she meant anything, but because you needed to see how far you could push me. You wanted to test the line and see if I'd finally snap. Congratulations. I snapped. His expression twisted into something between rage and despair. You think you're so righteous, but what about you? You brought a guy to that lodge for business, I said coldly. Something you wouldn't understand. He didn't even have a comeback. I took a breath and, before he could say anything else, I slapped him. Not once. Twice. One for every insult he'd let Vanessa throw in my face. The crowd gasped. Ethan froze, wide-eyed. You hit me. You're lucky that's all I did. Mia rushed forward in a panic. Claire, there are security cameras here. You could be reported for assault. I patted her on the shoulder. We're still legally married. It counts as domestic violence. Oh, she blinked, stunned. You really planned this, didn't you? I turned my face toward the sky. Actually, no. That was impulse. But sometimes impulse is exactly what a woman needs to breathe again. The court date came quickly. Ethan didn't show. But I had more than enough evidence. Photos. Screenshots. Voice recordings. And the kicker, Mia helped me file a motion to include Vanessa as a third party in the divorce, suing for emotional distress. The amount? Double what their group drunkenly bet on because, yes, we found out they were betting on how long it would take Vanessa to steal Ethan from me. A literal game. That's what my marriage was reduced to. And while we waited for the ruling, Ethan tried one last time to corner me at the office. His eyes were hollow, his hair messy, his voice shaking as he said, "Claire, how did it come to this? I never wanted to lose you. Don't you remember how good we were?" I walked past him without answering, but he followed. Linny used to be innocent, you know. When we were kids, she was sweet. She used to wait outside my classes with soda in hand, so I said, stopping in my tracks. You enjoyed being fought over. Two women competing for your affection. And now you lost us both. His eyes were red. But I never actually cheated. And yet here you are, I whispered. Being destroyed by the only woman you ever let get too close. When the ruling finally came, I was in London again, signing a new round of contracts. Outside, the lights on the Thames glittered like stars had fallen into the water. Mia smiled at me and whispered, "Congrats, Claire. It's finally over." She hesitated. "But aren't you sad?" "I mean, this was your husband. You loved him." I sipped my champagne and said, "Can you believe in love and still walk away?" She looked confused. "I guess. If you can," I said with a smirk, "you're ready for a raise." She blinked, then laughed. "Okay, but really, is there no such thing as true love?" I thought about it. There is. It just doesn't belong to people like us. Back in the States, Ethan and Vanessa were now infamous. The internet dubbed them the dirty couple. Everywhere they went, people whispered, pointed, recorded. Even abroad, expats recognized them and filmed them on the street. Netizens sent tip money just to mock them in public. The other childhood friends who once cheered them on? Gone. They vanished as soon as the truth surfaced. Even when Ethan tried calling them to vent, no one picked up. They'd all sobered up and chosen self-preservation over brotherhood. And when one of them finally answered, all he said was, "Dude, I just got married. My wife is strict. I can't be involved in your mess." How poetic. The guy who once laughed at me for being too uptight was now whipped and hiding behind his own wife. As for Ethan, was left to drown in the consequences of his own game. It wasn't even 2 full days after the ruling when Ethan's parents tracked me down, showing up at my building like they hadn't spent the last 2 years defending his every mistake, acting like Vanessa was just a misunderstood girl, and trying to play peacemakers while ignoring every insult I swallowed in silence. But now that the judge's ruling was in my favor and the court had formally included Vanessa as a third party in the emotional damages claim, suddenly they remembered how to be humble. Suddenly they remembered that I was the one who paid off Ethan's credit card debt when his startup tanked, that I was the one who negotiated with their HOA when their vacation home was about to be foreclosed, that I was the one who stood in front of the press and defended their son's character when that influencer accused him of stealing app code. But today, they just smiled tightly and told me to sit, said they'd brought fresh jasmine tea, and could we just have a quick chat? And I let them in. Not because I was in the mood to be forgiving, but because I wanted to see how much pride they were willing to swallow now that their precious golden boy had publicly burned, and as the steam from the tea curled upward in the soft silence, Ethan's dad cleared his throat and said, "We've spoken to Ethan. He's been very upset. But he told us, sincerely, that nothing ever happened with that girl and that he would be willing to make amends, however you saw fit," and his mother chimed in quickly with her softest voice. "I told him long ago that Vanessa wasn't a good influence. Always had eyes that wandered toward married men. You have to believe, Claire, you are the only one he truly ever cared for, and I almost laughed, because now she remembers, now she agrees with what I've been saying since day one, but instead I just raised an eyebrow, sipping the tea they made, and said calmly, "So, what exactly are you hoping I'll do?" And Ethan's dad straightened in his seat and said, "We're prepared to support your company directly, a private investment to offset the damage the scandal may have caused, and of course, Ethan will pay a penalty, financial or other whizzy as you see fit." And before I could respond, his mother cut in, "Please, just think about it, Claire. He chased you for years. He really does love you. Let us help him make this right." And I finally put down the cup and said, "From now on, I'll continue to call you auntie and uncle, because that's who you were to me. But I won't be your daughter-in-law anymore." And they went silent, the kind of silence that tells you their smiles were just masks barely clinging on, and after a long pause, his mom asked, "So there's no chance at all?" And instead of repeating myself, I opened my phone, tapped on the latest message I received from Vanessa, and played the voice note out loud, her syrupy voice saying, "Claire, I don't even want Ethan like that. If I really did, I'd have taken him years ago. I just don't think you deserve him. That's all." And Ethan's mom went pale, eyes widening in disbelief, because no matter how delusional a man can be, a woman can always recognize when another woman is being calculated, manipulative, and vicious. And I looked them both in the eye and said, "Instead of trying to convince me, maybe you should be asking yourselves what kind of woman would say that while destroying your son's marriage." And Uncle finally stood, not with the steady spine of someone trying to mediate, but with the posture of a man who realized he might have underestimated everything, and stormed out to make some calls. And when the investigation came back, it wasn't even some corporate scheme or revenge plot. Vanessa wasn't working for anyone. She wasn't paid to do anything. She simply got drunk with a bunch of Ethan's old friends, and one of them dared her to see if she could get Ethan to fall for her, even though he was already married, and she laughed, said, "Sure, why not? I'll bet I can do more than that." And the others piled on, made it a whole competition, and their bet was how long it would take her to sleep with him. But Vanessa raised the stakes, said just sex was boring. She wanted to see if she could get Ethan to leave his wife entirely, and everyone laughed like it was a joke, but none of them stopped her, none of them warned Ethan, none of them thought about what it would actually do to me. And when those recordings surfaced, because of course someone filmed it on their phone while drunk, they were damning. Not just because of what Vanessa said, but because Ethan didn't resist, didn't say no, didn't shut it down. He just smiled and took another drink like it was all fun and games. And that's when I realized this wasn't about one woman or one betrayal. It was about every single person who sat in that circle and let my name be dragged, who laughed while I was being humiliated, who watched a marriage turn into a bet and thought it was entertainment. And I had no intention of letting any of them off the hook. So when Ethan finally came to court after avoiding the initial hearing and sulking in the dark like some misunderstood anti-hero, looked at me with bloodshot eyes and whispered, "Claire, are you okay?" Like we were still a couple going through a rough patch. And I told him, "No, I'm in a rush." But he kept following me through the courthouse hallway, until finally I turned and said, "You know what this is, Ethan? This is karma. You sat there and enjoyed two women circling you like you were some prize. Now you're being abandoned by both." And his eyes turned red, his mouth open like he wanted to shout, but no words came out, and he whispered, "But I didn't cheat, you know that, Claire." And I smiled bitterly and said, "You didn't need to. You handed her the match and watched her burn everything I built, and that was it, the final nail." And when the ruling was announced, Vanessa was officially listed as a party responsible for emotional and reputational damage, and my legal team had already filed a follow-up suit, citing harassment and cyberbullying, and I didn't even flinch when the judgment came through, because by then, I was already on a plane, already heading to my next contract, already breathing clean air without the weight of his voice in my ear. And as we crossed the ocean, Mia turned to me with that same wide-eyed look she always had when trying to hide concern and asked, "So do you still believe in love?" And I looked at her, this brilliant little assistant who still thought the world worked like the romance novels she secretly read on her Kindle during breaks, and said, "There is love, Mia. It's just not for women like us. Women like us have to build our empires first, and maybe some own worth loving finds their way in. But if not, we'll be fine." And she nodded like she understood, but her eyes said she still wanted to believe in fairy tales, and I let her. Because she hadn't had her heart gutted by a husband who turned your wedding vows into punchlines for his friends. And when we landed and walked out into the humid summer air, I felt something shift in minute pain. Not relief, not revenge, just peace, the kind that comes when you've finally stopped bleeding and started rebuilding, not because you're stronger, but because you're finally free. The weirdest part about going viral is how quiet the aftermath feels when it's your life at the center of the storm. Like, everyone is screaming in your notifications, but your actual world, the one where you wake up, brush your teeth, and drink overpriced almond milk lattes, is eerily calm, like the silence after a hurricane. And that's exactly how it felt in the days following the court verdict, when Ethan Carter and Vanessa Collins became public enemy number one. Affectionately dubbed the Dirty Duo on every platform from TikTok to Reddit, their names sandwiched between hashtags like Trash Couple and Green Tea Queen, people stitching clips of the pool party, the wine-soaked confrontation, the ice cream scene like it was a rom-com gone wrong. Except I wasn't crying in a bathtub. I was at a strategy summit in Chicago, outlining our next international expansion while sipping cucumber water and pretending not to notice the executive next to me sliding his number under my coffee sleeve. And Mia, bless her dramatic soul, kept pulling out her phone to show me fresh memes, like one where someone had photoshopped Vanessa into a trash can labeled recyclable only if she had shame, and another where Ethan was edited to be holding a pick me sign with the caption, "Bro thinks he's a prize," and while the internet was busy roasting them alive, I was just focused on flipping the narrative, because in business, scandal is a spotlight, and I was going to make sure mine turned into a platform, so I called up the PR agency I'd kept on retainer just in case, and within 72 hours they had rebranded the entire incident as a cautionary tale of female empowerment. Claire Bennett, the woman who said no to public humiliation and yes to herself. Articles started popping up titled things like, "She filed for divorce in Dior," "How Claire Bennett became the new face of respect," and "Corporate Queen Claire, from betrayed wife to billion-dollar CEO," and the best part was that I didn't even have to do interviews. I just kept building my company and letting my silence speak louder than Ethan's desperate little apologies and Vanessa's passive-aggressive subtweets, which, by the way, weren't helping their image at all, especially the one where she wrote, "Only real women can keep a man," which backfired so hard someone replied with, "Girl, you didn't keep him. You rented him for 2 drinks and a dare, and I didn't even have to lift a finger, because karma came with Wi-Fi now," and it turns out people don't forget betrayal when it's recorded in 4K, especially when the villain monologues were so self-incriminating they sounded scripted, and Ethan, poor Ethan, tried to play the misunderstood husband card by issuing a Notes app apology on Instagram, saying things like, "I take full responsibility for the hurt I've caused," and "Claire deserves better," which, ironically, was the first true thing he'd said in years. But the comments were brutal. "You didn't just cause hurt, you hosted a Betrayal Olympics, and you don't need a therapist, you need exile." And while all that was happening, Vanessa tried to pivot into victimhood, going on some second-rate podcast to cry about how hard it was to be misunderstood, how women should uplift other women, and how cancel culture was ruining her mental health. But the host was savage and asked, "Do you think it was cancel culture, or was it pouring wine on someone's marriage and calling it a game?" And Vanessa stammered something about not knowing Claire personally, and how she never meant to get between us, but everyone already knew that was a lie because the screen recordings existed, the voice notes existed, the bet existed. And public sympathy doesn't extend to the woman who actively turned a marriage into a dare. Meanwhile, I was too busy meeting with investors and signing off on my next product launch to care. But the irony of it all hit me when I saw a clip of Vanessa being approached in public. Someone threw a bouquet of wilted cilantro at her and shouted, "Green tea rots everything," and I'm not even sure what that was supposed to mean, but it was the most poetic thing I'd seen all week, and Ethan's own friends had started ghosting him, not just avoiding him socially, but refusing to take his calls. pretending they were out of town. One of them even posted a cryptic story that said drunk words are sober intentions and then promptly deactivated, which told me everything I needed to know about how fast rats jump ship when the boat starts leaking. And I thought about how all those guys cheered when Vanessa flirted with Ethan at that party, how they laughed when she pulled his hair, dared him to cheat, turned me into some uptight obstacle standing between their boy and a good time. But now they were quiet, conveniently remembering they had wives, careers, brands to protect, and suddenly loyalty didn't mean what it used to. But I wasn't surprised cowards always scatter when the heat rises. And speaking of heat, Vanessa and Ethan's upcoming trial for civil damages was about to kick off, and their lawyer, clearly desperate, sent a letter proposing a private settlement with a gag order, offering a decent amount of money if I'd agree to drop the case and publicly withdraw the harassment charges. But I didn't even blink before forwarding it to my lawyer with a 2-word reply: decline immediately, because the point was never the money. It was the principle and the message I needed every woman watching to understand was this humiliation doesn't have to be swallowed. You can spit it out and let it stain the people who served it to you, and you can do it in heels, with lipstick on, signing deals while the world burns behind you. And I guess that's why the final brand campaign we launched that quarter was such a hit. Not just because the product was good, but because the timing was perfect. The slogan read, "Reclaim your power," and it was plastered across every billboard, subway station, and digital ad feed in the city, featuring women in suits, in sweats, in sneakers, all looking like they knew exactly what they were worth. And the launch party? Oh, it was legendary. Held at the same venue where Ethan once brought me to a gala and introduced me as his +1 who made the spreadsheets. This time I walked in as the CEO whose name was on every contract, with Mia at my side in a sharp cream pantsuit and 2 former competitors now pitching to work under our brand umbrella. And the moment I stepped onto that rooftop, camera flashes went off, not because of scandal this time, but because people knew they were witnessing a woman who didn't just survive betrayal, she monetized it, weaponized it, and walked straight into her next chapter with her head held high. No husband on her arm, no apology in her mouth, just purpose in her eyes and a war map in her back pocket. Because that's the thing no one tells you about heartbreak. It doesn't just break you, it chisels you into something sharper, and I was ready to cut through everything that came next. I thought the final blow would come in court, that it would be some dramatic moment with cameras outside the courthouse and Ethan in a wrinkled suit begging the judge for mercy, while Vanessa tried to fake cry through her thick eyeliner. But it didn't happen like that. Because real endings aren't loud, they're slow burns that sizzle in silence until everything's ash, and the only thing left is the way people look at you after the smoke clears. And for Ethan Carter and Vanessa Collins, it started with a whisper: one business partner dropping out, one brand deal quietly withdrawn, one high school friend removing them from a group chat, not because they were bad people exactly, but because they'd become radioactive and profitable and inconvenient. And as the civil suit moved forward and the evidence kept stacking up, screenshots, audio files, betting records, text threads of their friends egging them on, it was like watching a tower of shame being built brick by brick with their own hands. And what they didn't expect, what no one ever expects, was that I wouldn't just stand there at the base of it. I'd climb that tower, raise a flag, and turn it into a lighthouse for every woman who's ever been told to forgive, to calm down, to lower her voice when she's being publicly disrespected. And that's exactly what I did, because while Ethan tried to backpedal his way into public redemption and Vanessa hopped from one sad influencer podcast to another crying about online hate, I was sitting across from a group of global venture capitalists who looked me in the eye and said, "We're not just investing in your product, we're investing in your clarity." And I remember smiling, because that was the first time in months I felt like the world finally saw me the way I saw myself, not as someone scorned, but someone sharpened. And maybe that's why when the settlement offer came in one last time, double the original amount, with an NDA thicker than a Bible, I didn't even hesitate before replying with a single word: rejected. Because closure doesn't come from money, it comes from power, and I'd already taken back every ounce they thought they stole from me. But what came next wasn't even my doing, and that's the part I'll always find satisfying. Because the internet has a memory sharper than revenge and pettier than I'll ever be, and someone, somewhere, unearthed an old live stream from 2 years ago where Vanessa joked about how easy it was to manipulate guys like Ethan, and the clip went viral in less than 6 hours, getting stitched, duet, subtitled, and translated into 3 languages, with reaction videos ranging from "This is why karma never sleeps" to "Girl really thought she was the main character." And suddenly, the few remaining people in their corner started unfollowing in real time. Even Vanessa's own sister publicly posted a story saying blood doesn't mean I endorse trash, and the final straw? One of Ethan's former business partners released a podcast episode where he confessed that Vanessa once tried to flirt her way into an investment deal by implying she'd soon have access to Claire Bennett's trade secrets. And when the interviewer asked if that was true, he laughed and said she couldn't even spell NDA, and just like that, the damage was sealed not by me, not by court, but by the same chaos they tried to weaponize against me, and Ethan must have known it too. Because one rainy afternoon I got a call from an unknown number, and for some reason, I answered, and it was him, voice low, tired, and not performative this time, no excuses, no shouting, just silence. Then, "Claire, are you happy now?" And I stared out my office window at the skyline I now owned metaphorically and legally, and said, "Not happy. Just done," and he let out a breath, then added, "I just never thought you'd go this far," and that's when I finally laughed, because isn't that always the case? Men think they can go to the edge of betrayal and expect women to just take it, absorb it, bury it under cooking and patience and love, and when we finally get tired of bleeding quietly, they call us cold, call us heartless, call us ruthless for defending what they thought we'd give up for free. And I told him, "Ethan, I didn't go far, I just stopped letting you walk all over me," and before he could answer, I ended the call, blocked the number, and let me a note to forward anything else to legal. Because this wasn't personal anymore, this was precedent, and I wanted to make sure the next woman who stood in a boardroom while her husband flirted poolside in a bikini circus would know exactly what she could do next. And maybe that's why I didn't flinch when the press reached out for an exclusive, or when people asked if I'd ever consider writing a memoir, because the truth is, I already did it in every deal I closed after he left. Every brand I built with my name front and center, every time I walked into a room and no longer felt the need to shrink to make someone else comfortable. And it's funny, isn't it, how we're told heartbreak makes us fragile, but all it really does is show us the blueprint of who we've been too scared to become. And when Vanessa finally disappeared from social media, deactivated everything, deleted all her videos, vanished from the spotlight she once begged for, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a necessary silence, like the story had ended exactly the way it was always meant to. And Ethan? He stayed in the shadows, occasionally popping up in LinkedIn comments like a ghost that used to believe he was untouchable. But no one engages, no one defends him. They just scroll past, because in the end, that's what happens to men who mistake attention for affection and applause for immunity. They fade, quietly, pathetically, and the women they underestimated. We rise, louder, stronger, unstoppable, and as for me, I didn't remarry, didn't rebound, didn't rush into some fantasy ending to prove I'd moved on. Instead, I bought a townhouse with a rooftop garden, got a dog who doesn't cheat or gaslight, and kept building the kind of life that's too good to justify sharing with someone who doesn't meet the bar. And when people ask, "Do you believe in love now?" I say, "I believe in love that doesn't require sacrifice as proof." And when they ask, "Would you ever go back?" I say, "Not even if he showed up on one knee with every apology he forgot to give me." Because the truth is, once you finally choose yourself, nothing else tastes as sweet. Not revenge, not romance, not even vindication, just peace. The kind that wraps around your spine and whispers, "You did it, and I did," not because I'm special, but because I stopped waiting to be saved and started acting like I was worth saving, and now no one gets to write my story but me.